Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another weekly edition of All Aboard's Weekly Tips. This week, I am so excited because I have a special guest. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different format today, but I'd like to formally invite my friend and owner of Weaver Sales Academy, Michael Weaver. Welcome. Thanks for joining me, dude.
Andrew, what's up, man? I am pumped.
I'm pumped too. I feel like you and I have talked so much over the last year and a half that I feel like we've known each other for 5 years plus, right? So that's one of the best compliments I think I can give. And, we've worked together in various ways, but so excited to have you here today to share with All Aboard's audience on a few things that we think that can take people's sales training to the next level.
Yeah, baby. I'm super excited. And Andrew, I just want to say, number one, thank you and how grateful I am even to be on the newsletter and give back to your all's community. So I'm super excited.
Well, likewise, man. Well, I appreciate you being here. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that, not only did you come on to add value to the audience, but Weaver Sales Academy is also the official sponsor of this week's newsletter. And one of the things I always remind our audience is that, we try to add value to agents all across the country for free every week. And our sponsors help keep the newsletter free. It helps make everybody that much better off. So thank you. And with that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our topic of the week, which are 5 quick questions on how to improve sales in your agency. And so I think what I want to do, and I've never done this format before, is we've got 5 questions. And I figured it'd be kind of nice to do kind of like the sports analyst type shows, right? We have a question and I'll throw it to you for you to tell me your thoughts and your opinion. And then I'll give my thoughts and my opinion. And maybe sometimes we agree. Hopefully we don't agree, right? I think it'd be a little bit spicier and a little bit more fun if we don't agree. But we'll go into the questions. That sound like a plan to you?
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Okay, well, let's do it then. And as always, I always put this newsletter in both written and video format. So there will be a written response to this if you miss anything or you want to read it as well. But all right, let's dive in with the first question, man. And so this is something that's been on so many agents' minds. We talk about training salespeople, all right? And there are all types of training programs out there. Weaver Sales Academy has some really amazing ones. Some people build their own training plans. And I think about this all of the time with my own team. We have a full-time sales trainer. We're always thinking about how do we train our people better? How do we train our people faster? But something that I think doesn't get asked enough is what are the gaps in our training program, right? And so I hear people talk about the same kind of focus areas over and over again. And so the first question I'd like to ask you is, what do you think is the number one thing that agency owners, sales managers, agency trainers overlook when it comes to training salespeople? What's something they leave out or forget to train on?
That's a great question. And I would say my mind actually goes back to, this is something that I struggled with in the very beginning of honestly, throughout my entire career. I've helped thousands of insurance agency owners do the same. And so you got to think, when I take myself back. And so I'll just share a quick story. So anytime we would hire a brand new salesperson, we would sit and train them for 3 hours a day, every single day for the first 30 days of their career with us. And that's a lot of time. That's a lot of energy. And 6 weeks in, they would quit. 9 weeks in, they would quit. 12 weeks in, they would quit. Sometimes they wouldn't even make it through the first 30 days. And so when you ask me that question, I think the one thing that comes to my mind is the thought process of, I can do it myself. I can do it myself. And here's the thing is, you don't have the tools or the time to necessarily do it yourself. And so when it comes to that, that's what I feel like. Because when you can either partner with somebody, or I would say from an agency owner's specific, if you can delegate that to a sales manager like you have, Andrew, now you're freeing up your time, your energy to be able to have a proven process with a partner or someone within your agency that you trust. So I know that you asked me from a manager trainer standpoint, but I'm going to take this more agency owner specific. Is as an agency owner, specifically those first 5 years of the business, you're wearing so many hats, from trainer to leader to CEO to probably top salesperson to community liaison. Yeah. And that was one thing that I did. And look, I'm a recovering control monster myself. I'm a controlaholic. And so I thought, well, I'm the best at this. I'm better than everybody at this. Well, what actually happened is bam, okay, so I devote a lot of time. Well, then the person doesn't work out. So I just wasted a lot of time. I wasted a lot of energy. I wasted a lot of money. And then what has to not happen since I'm delegating my time and energy to the training? And that even goes into the consistent training. So I just said a story about the new hires. Well, the consistent training with tenured team and your team, well, that also went to the back burner. And so I believe that that is one of the biggest faults I experienced as an agency owner, of trying to do it myself, even though I didn't have the time or really the energy or want to do it myself, because I was trying to save pennies on the dollar to hire a partner like Weaver Sales Academy that has a proven system for success that I could plug my team into, hold them accountable to, which would have saved me literally hours a day and given me a tool for that consistent training piece.
Well said, man. It's, I've never been a great sales trainer myself. And I think I was lucky enough to realize that about myself early. So I've never really done the sales training myself. And don't get me wrong, like I've trained salespeople in the past, but I think to your point about saying, look, whether it's because you don't like doing it, whether it's because you don't have the time to do it, whether it's because you're not good at it or whatever, having somebody to delegate it to, I think is great. And I love that you took a high level view, right? Because it's like, I'm about to get in the weeds, which I think is indicative of our personalities, right? I think you are a big picture vision guy. I think that I'm sure that you can get in the weeds on the individual stuff too. Just like I can be a big picture guy as well, but I really enjoy being in the weeds. And you mentioned this idea about being a control monster, you're a recovering control monster. I relate with that. I don't know that I'm in recovery yet, though. I think I might still be, kind of in the pit of despair, for lack of a better term. So I love that, right? I think outsourcing it and making sure that somebody can do it as well or you as well as you or better, so you can focus on something else. I'll kick what I think what people overlook, and it's a little bit more in the weeds. In my opinion, the thing that a lot of people overlook when it comes to sales training is follow-up process. I think that people are so focused on building rapport. I think they're so focused on closing the deal. They're so focused on calling your leads and overcoming objections. And there's so much effort on the front end of the sales process. And there's a lot of push to do like a first call bind or a one call close or whatever you talk or however you call it, right? Like just how do we close them without ever putting them in our pipeline? And the reality is like I've looked at the data, and maybe it's just that my team's not as good at the one call close and that we could be better at it. But something like 85, 90% of the sales we make come from follow-ups, at least at Peachy Insurance. And it's so common that when we have a new producer, that we start to monitor past due follow-up. So what we do is we look at, what's a follow-up that was due in the past and it just didn't get hit. And what I've always noticed is that when people get their follow-up process right and they start bringing in technology like text and email and phone, right? It's not just one channel. People's sales ultimately go up. And I think it's about a balance, because some people are great at the one call close, but not great at follow-up. And some people are horrible at the one call close and really good at follow-up. And the idea is to find balance. So that's kind of what came to my mind when I thought about that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Look, there's the saying, this, I know this, a lot of you listening to this know this, fortune is in the follow-up. No matter how good of a closer you are, like data specific wise, back in my agency and out of the thousands of agency owners I've helped, usually about 70% of sales calls are going to require a follow-up. And so you have to have a really great follow-up process. One rule that I teach is the 48-hour rule, meaning that you always schedule the follow-up within the first 2 days. Statistically speaking, and I've measured this with my agency along with other agencies that I've coached, those folks that you can get on the phone or follow up with within the 48-hour time frame, so 1 to 2 days, and the sooner the better, had a 70+% closing rate on that business. If it fell to day 3 to day 5, it dropped down into the 30% range, and anything past day 5 dropped down into like the 13% range on a closing rate. So you're knocking out of the park with that suggestion, because follow-up is just part of the sales cycle. Like that's just part of it. In one call close, that could be a conversation in itself. The one call close is great, but a lot of times the one call close is typically a single line product, which I'm not a fan of. You should not be closing single line products in your agency, because typically those have extremely high lapse cans. And so bigger households sometimes can take some follow-up, or multi-line households. And so don't be afraid of the follow-up. Just go for the yes or no and try to get to the yes or no on that original call. But look, most calls are going to require a follow-up, statistically speaking. So have a really great follow-up process. I would mimic exactly. Yeah, you knocked it out of the park on that one.
Well, awesome, man. I think it's, and I always encourage people, use automation as much as you can, schedule text, schedule emails, right? Don't make it a thing you got to think about. So, all right, man. Well, next, say it again.
Like, keep it in your control.
For sure.
You as a sales professional, you control the conversation. It's like Jordan Belfort's straight line selling system. Like, the customer's job is to throw you off of the process. It's your job to come back into the process. So at the end of the call, if you can't close it, hey, Andrew, totally understand that you need to think about it or you need to talk to your spouse tonight. When is a good time tomorrow to put a time on the calendar to see what you've decided to do?
For sure, right? Out of sight, out of mind. So if we stay in sight, we stay in mind, and we get the deal done. So let's go to our next question, right? So second question that I wanted to ask you is, what is one intangible that you look for in prospective salespeople that other people might overlook? So if we think about hiring salespeople, what are you looking for in an interview that other people might not consider, right? So I think just before I say, it's like everyone's going to say, oh, they want people to be motivated. They want to be hungry. They want to be this or that, right? But like, what's maybe like an intangible or something that's a little bit different or out of left field?
That's a fantastic question. So there's going to be some that come to your mind: integrity, communication, competition. I think all of those are really great. You're looking for those. Something that just came to my mind that it actually, when I read a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor.
It's a great book.
Fantastic. And so that's where my mind automatically goes. And when I started looking for salespeople that had this characteristic, which is the characteristic of optimism, in the book, he references a statistic. Don't quote me on this, but optimistic salespeople outperform pessimistic salespeople in year one by 37%, in year two of upwards of like 52%. And so one of those characteristics that I believe a lot of agency owners may not be looking for is that optimistic salesperson. And optimism, I'm going to take it into the next thing that I also look for from a characteristic standpoint, is self-development. And self-development, people that tend to be really focused on self-development just tend to be more optimistic. And so that is one thing I'm always looking for my sales team, because if you're not willing to develop yourself now and you have no history of development, the likelihood that you're going to buy into a culture of development is really hard for most people. And so I'm looking to add people that are looking to develop, are looking to grow, that have a personal success routine to add to my culture, because I believe that that will only enhance my culture and the people that are already on my team.
Well said. And so true, right? Like the people who like self-development or like self-improvement books, I do think tend to be focused more on improving a little bit every day, right? I think it's, I think one of the challenges with, scrolling all night or watching TV all night, and like, don't get me wrong, like I watch a disgusting amount of TV, but I try to read a lot too. And, because the mind finds what it's looking for. I talk about this all the time. It's like, if you're constantly thinking about improvement, you're going to improve. And so I really like that. And it's so funny you mentioned the optimism piece, because I was working with my own business coach. I have a business coach right now, and he's helping me kind of decide how do we scale like a call center operation, right? So Next Call Club has, our telemarketing operation, our SDRs. And so I've hired an expert who runs a massive call center to kind of talk about this, right? And we were talking about what he looks for in really high performing call center reps. And he talked about hope. He used the word hope rather than optimism, but interchangeable, right? Hope, optimism, same idea. And so I thought it's just interesting that you said the same thing. I think to take it from a different route and maybe a little bit more rude, I guess, for lack of a better term, is that like, I'm looking for people who are not boring. I want somebody who's interesting or has novel experiences or interesting points of view. And there's a really great article that I read probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and I send it out all the time, and it says, "Losers exist, don't hire them." And so the title of the article is very punchy, right? It's calling people losers, which is not kind. It's certainly not empathetic or sympathetic. But the whole point of the article is that, look, like, you should have somebody who can talk to you about their interests, their hobbies, their life outside of work. Because if they have no life outside of work, they have no hobbies, or they just kind of give you like, oh, I like to read, I like to hike. Well, who doesn't? Who doesn't like to read and who doesn't like to hike? But cool, like what's your favorite book? Why is it your favorite book? And you would not believe how many people crumble when you ask them for those details. And like I've even done this with people coming right out of college where I say, look, oh great, like what did you study in college? And they say, oh, I got a finance degree. And I said, oh great, I got a finance degree. I said, what was your favorite class? And they can't even tell me what their favorite class was. You spent 4 years at a university and you can't tell me your favorite class. I mean, just be honest. Just tell me you partied and, drank and did all that type of stuff in college. I'll respect you more. I'll respect you more and probably hire you because you were honest and be like, honestly, man, I partied a lot in college. I had a lot of fun, but I'm ready to get my life on track, and I would respect it, right? I would respect it. So I think yours as optimism is great. Mine is somebody who's interesting, because I always say it's like if we call somebody and they say I'm not interested, well, that's because we are not interesting. It is our job to make them interested, right?
Mic drop, baby.
Yeah. So that would be my opinion on the intangible. So let's go to our next question, right? So this one is, I think, top of mind for a lot of agents, certainly in the Allstate world. I'm hoping in the State Farm world as well, but I see it starting to happen more on the farmer side and maybe not as much on the independent world. But it's like, what is your opinion on like customer service teams becoming a producing unit, like customer service people selling from their chair?
And to just clarify, so these are service individuals that are answering the phone every day?
They're taking inbound calls from customers who are calling with a problem or a request or a change of some type, not a sales call.
I think it is a absolute non-negotiable, and I believe that it starts with the leadership in the agency, with the agency owner, of creating a culture of opportunities. So many time when you think of service, and you could even have a service team right now that may not be responsible for sales. And if you ask them, well, what does good service look like? A lot of people are going to say, well, I answer the phone, I make sure that they're taken care of on the call, I let them off, maybe we send them thank you cards, maybe we say thank you for your business. Sure, those are all like feel good, like, oh yeah, that's great. But how do you actually take care of someone? And in my opinion, as an insurance professional, you have the ability to have conversations with people for their worst day and to make sure that they have a plan so they're not financially devastated, regardless if it's carrying correct liability limits on the vehicle, regardless if it's home insurance, regardless if it's life insurance, whatever insurance plan it is. And so in my belief and what I see the absolute best agencies in the country do, they are a sales organization. Everyone is responsible for sales and everyone is responsible for looking at opportunities. Not just this is a service task, this is an opportunity. So I actually view the service team as an opportunity to be your absolute best sales team in the agency, because they are talking to your customers that know you, like you, trust you, and pay you.
I love it. I love the know, like, trust framework. The know, like, trust framework. I think our mutual friend, Bo Vincent, talks about that all the time. He's always saying, know, like, trust, know, like, trust. I can hear him in my head saying, know, like, trust. And, I think to ask kind of like one further question, right? Do you think, and I know this is a binary question and it probably is more nuanced than a yes or no, but do you think that the service team should just go ahead and have the conversation and sell it? Or are you more of an advocate of like a pass to the sales team?
So here's the thing is I'm not picky with that as long as the opportunity is being asked about. Okay, so I don't believe that there is a right or wrong when it comes to should the service person just go ahead and have the sales conversation and close it. Look, if that's the model you want to run, I think that's great because that takes the transfer out. That takes the ability to say, we can take care of you right now versus, well, let me get you over to Andrew. Oh, actually, Andrew's on the phone. Let me schedule time for Andrew to call you back. So in my opinion, there is no right or wrong, but if the salesperson or the service person, I put service in quotes right now, if they can be trained to just go ahead and have that conversation, they're confident with it, they can go ahead and get it done. That's what I would say to do because it's a more efficient process. But look, if you run an agency and you're like, look, I just want my service team creating opportunities for my outside sales team, then fantastic. That's okay too. Most importantly, we're always looking for opportunities.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you. I remember when I started putting production goals in on our customer service team, we actually refer to them as customer experience, right? Because they're not just customer service, right? We say, look, we want you to craft like the whole customer experience. And, we call them CX, which sounds cooler than CS and all these things, right? But part of that rebrand of the team was this idea of adding production in. And when I first went to this, like we got a lot of pushback from our service team because they said, I don't want to sell. Right. And I think what we said to them is like, look, we don't really want you to sell either. But what we do want you to do is identify gaps, educate the client, and make recommendations. Right. Because if you're identifying gaps, educating the client, and making recommendations, you're not selling anymore. Right. You're just being actually like an actual advisor or a consultant or some type of person who's there to help them along the way. And if they don't want to do it, right, like whatever, but they might come back and buy it later. And it's kind of interesting because what we've largely done is we said, look, if it's kind of like a small ancillary item, go ahead and write it. So if it's an umbrella or a boat or like a renter's policy, these kind of like extra things to a current client. But if it's one of our bigger, more important lines of business, like an auto, a home, a landlord policy, things that kind of drive more premium or count as like variable compensation items, in our comp plan, go ahead and pass it to the sales team. But as we've evolved, right, we have a team on the service side that says, hey, like we want to make more money. And so now, me and my leaders are actually discussing how do we transition these people on this team, less of customer service reps who pass to be more of like revenue generating type inside salespeople, for lack of a better term, right? People who take inbound calls and sell off of those pivots. And so I'm always curious what people's opinions are, because I agree that there is no right or wrong answer. But I do think where we are aligned is like the service interactions are such a great opportunity to build trust, to build value, to drive revenue in your agency. And I think as all of us across the country, whether you're captive or independent, production, the demand for production by carriers is going up and up and up. And if we're only trying to get there from internet leads or direct mail, our marketing budgets are going to explode. So we have to find a way to turn every interaction into an opportunity, even if that's just kind of passively saying, hey, if you have any family, friends, or neighbors, people just like you, would you send them my way? Even if you don't feel comfortable asking for their phone number, just making sure you're planting the seed.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more. And so there's 2 points there. Your inside sales reps or customer service reps that we're talking about, what is their strength typically? Their strength is typically rapport building. Their strength is typically relationship building.
For sure.
What do most outside sales reps or new business reps really struggle with? Rapport. They want to get right to the sell. They want to get right to the close. And so this is actually a strength. And the more you educate, and so if you have an inside sales team right now that that are really struggling, like you've tried to have this conversation, one mindset shift that you may think about or talk about is, hey, we're not selling anything. All we're doing is asking a thought-provoking question of something that we currently don't have. Because if something happens to them, number one, they're not protected right now. They're not covered. You're going to feel pretty bad. Number two, then all we do is educate. And they're the ones that get to make the decision whether Absolutely. This is a good fit for them or not. Like the best sales professionals in the world are the best at asking questions and educating. And then it's up to the customer to decide whether this is a good buying decision for them or not.
I could not agree more. I think especially around asking questions, right? I think we hear it over and over and over again. We say, got to ask more questions, got to listen more than you talk. Yet it is so hard for, I think, all of us, myself included, to do that, right? I think about coaching other agents. I think about coaching the leaders in my own agency. And like, I always have to catch myself and say, okay, wait a minute, I'm talking too much here. How do I ask more questions? And so different with salespeople. So, okay. So question number 4, I think moving on to the next one is, if you could give only one tip to a salesperson, doesn't matter if they're an outbound salesperson, an inbound salesperson, to close more deals, one tip to close more deals, what would that tip be?
This is an easy one. And this is one that I coach on every week. Hundreds of insurance professionals, thousands probably every week, definitely thousands throughout the years. I want you to think about this. You start a conversation always with the end in mind. And so any conversation you're having as a sales professional, I would hope that the beginning of that conversation with the end in mind is they're going to become a paying customer because that's how I actually take care of them. And so the one tip right now that I could give you that will instantly increase your sales is if you begin to assume the close. That easy.
Yep.
Like so many salespeople that I coach, specifically those sales producers that struggle compared to those that don't. Sales producers that struggle tend to get to the end of a conversation and ask a question like, do you have any questions? Does that make sense? Do you want me to email this over to you? Hey, okay. Eliminate that right now from your vocabulary and go straight into, hey, Andrew, everything we talked about today is going to be $250 a month. Do you want to put that on your Visa, MasterCard, or Amex today? And that in itself will instantly generate more sales because customers have to know what the next step in the process is. And you right now might be thinking, and I know that you're thinking this, maybe not all of you listening, but some of you, because this gets brought up in a lot of our sales training calls. Well, Michael, that's pretty aggressive. Michael, that's pretty pushy. Like, don't you think I'm going to scare the customer off? And in all reality, it's not pushy. It's not aggressive. You're not going to scare anyone off. What may actually be coming up to you right now is the fact that you're afraid of bothering people. I would ask you right now while you're listening to this, like, do you have a hard time asking for help? Because if you do, it's a good indicator that you're afraid of bothering people, which is instantly going to come up in that sales call when I'm asking you to assume the close and ask for payment information. So if you're willing to just try it, I can guarantee you this one simple tip will generate more sales in a given month if you just begin assuming the sell by asking, hey, Andrew, everything we talked about today is $250 a month. You want to put that on your Visa, MasterCard, or Amex?
It's so interesting, the comparison to, do you feel like you're bothering people by asking for help? It's a really, I think, astute observation. And I can think about some people who haven't worked out in the agency that were like, oh, I don't want to be a bother. Hey, I don't want to do this or that. And they struggled, right? It's like they were apprehensive to ask for a question for whatever reason, whether it was because they don't want to be a bother or they feel insecure or they feel anxious or whatever. And, to your point about like aggressiveness, like, I tell people the same thing, or I say like, look, I am the laziest consumer. Like I work hard all day long. I make decisions all day long, whether it's in Next Call Club or my agency, I'm constantly making decisions, and decision fatigue is real. I talk to business owners about this all the time. So when I get after work and I don't want to make any decisions. So if a salesperson says, do you want to do it? I'll be like, I don't know, man. Like, let me think about it. Like, let me think about it when I'm not so tired of making decisions. And when somebody says like, look, do you want to just like get this thing done and knock it out? Like 95% of the time, I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. Like, let's just do it. And it's such a different shift from, well, what do you think versus, do you want to just like get this off your plate? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of do just want to get this off my plate. And yeah, is there something that might be a better price? There might be, but am I really going to go do the work to price this out? Like this was one of the reasons I've paid so much money fixing my house, is because I just don't have the patience to get 3 bids sometimes. I'm just like, you know what? Like, just do it, right? We have it. So I really like that. And to your point about assuming the close, like we hear it over and over and over again, but people got to do it. I was going to say, believe. You got to believe that they're going to say yes, but I think that's too close. I'm going to go a different route, right? To give the audience something different. And so something I talk about a lot is like, I say, if you want to sell more deals, imagine you're talking to like your grandparents. Imagine you're selling to your grandparents. If you don't have grandparents or you didn't have a close relationship, think of like your most dear family member or friend. Imagine you were selling to them. And not in a way like where they know you and you're just being super casual, but imagine like you're treating them how you would want somebody to treat your grandparents, or how you'd want somebody to treat your most cherished family member. And I'll never forget it. Like Peter Godley is our chief revenue officer. He runs the sales operation. And we had a sales guy one time. And I don't know what happened. I think I pulled the call. I was helping out with some coaching or something this couple of years ago. And the way that this salesperson interacted with a current client on a cross sell was just completely unacceptable. And so I sent it to Peter. It was his team. I said, hey, dude, by the way, please handle this. And I loved the way that he handled it, because he basically touched on this point. He said, look, man, he's like, my grandma is a client here. He's like, and if you ever talked to my grandma that way, like we would have personal problems, much less professional problems. And I think that's like the antithesis of what I'm talking about. It's the opposite of what I'm talking about. But the point is, if you just treat people like you would want your grandparents or your most loved family to be treated, people are going to feel that. They're going to feel that authenticity. And it's not something you can fake. So it's like, if you have to fake it, like maybe the answer is try caring more, and if you can't care more, I hope I don't hurt anybody out there. It's like you probably shouldn't be selling this product, right? You should probably be doing something else because like truly, if you can't care about it, if you can't believe in it, it doesn't matter if you're good at selling it or not. You probably should do something else. So I really liked yours. I wanted to go a different route. And so, okay, last question here.
1 second though.
Yeah.
That's super important because it goes back to always doing the right thing for the customer. All right. I'm of the firm belief that anything, like if you're not a customer, if I can't help you, I'm just going to tell you that. Like I'm going to spend time on the phone educating you and giving you better coverage and giving you a better plan. I am the best fit for you. And the only way that I actually help you out is if you do business with me today. Like you can educate till you're blue in the face, but if they don't actually do business with you, they're in the same situation they're in, which means if they go and total out their car tonight, they're going to be financially devastated tomorrow. So
absolutely,
that belief system that you have to have in what you do is an absolute must as a sales professional, or you will always struggle. And it's always about doing the right thing, like you just said. Like if you just have conversations with people every day out of genuine care, that's going to fill you up. It's going to be meaningful, and you are going to write more business because you believe in what you do. You're confident in what you do, and you know if the worst case happens, your customer's taken care of.
Absolutely. It's a long-term approach, right? When you have a long-term approach, a long-term vision, you're not really you're not desperate anymore. Like you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. And that always works out. It always works out.
Which is why I say price doesn't matter. And consumers agree with that. 90% of people say they will pay more for something if they find value in it. And insurance is the same way. So if you do the right thing, you probably are more expensive, but you should be more expensive because you're offering a better product and a better plan.
I love that. You're more expensive because you should be more expensive. And I think that's the truth, right? Because I mean, we're heavy internet leads. Probably 80%, 70% of the people we come across are minimum limit people, you know? They've just gotten bad advice or no advice along the way.
Yep.
So, okay. Last question here. We'll bring this thing home. This should be a layup for you. I have my opinion. I'll go next, but why should agents consider working with Weaver Sales Academy?
It's a great question. So that's a really good question. So let me just pose this real fast to you. Yeah. Why do you have a business coach?
I have a business coach for a couple reasons, right? One is that I like having somebody to bounce ideas off of. That's one. That's just kind of like the easy low-hanging fruit, right? Another one is accountability, right? Even though they're not really holding me accountable from like hey, turn in this homework, turn in that. It's like I know I have a meeting with them and I'm spending money to meet with them. And I want to make sure I'm spending my money wisely, right? Same thing with my own coaching clients. I always say is like, look, if I don't add value, I don't want you to spend money with me. But same thing, I want to make sure I get value out of my coach. And the third reason is because they are an expert and they have achieved something that I want to achieve. And I could spend time, energy, and effort to figure it out myself and probably lose a bunch of money on mistakes. Or I could spend some money to tap into that expert's expertise and learn hopefully from their mistakes and take a shortcut and accelerate my timeline. Yep. That's why I have a business coach.
Yeah. So I just hired a golf coach because I wanted to get better at golf.
Yeah.
I've only done 3 sessions with him and I'm already much better at golf. And so I just told Courtney's my wife. I told her the other day, I'm like, hands down, anything you want to get better in, all you have to do is go pay a coach and you will get better at it. And so to answer your question, and it's a really great question, and there are thousands of training programs out there, but everything we talked about today is exactly why you should consider working with us at Weaver Sales Academy. I mean, from what is one of the biggest mistakes I made in agency ownership, it was not delegating the training, even though I loved it and I'm great at it. There were other things that took my time and energy to where training fell to the wayside. So at Weaver Sales Academy, we provide you the tool that's a proven tool that over 10,000 insurance professionals have went through.
Wow.
So it's a tool of proven success. Not only that, when it comes to your salespeople and getting them trained, we take a curriculum style approach. And I would say that's our uniqueness at Weaver Sales Academy is it's just not, this is how I was successful in insurance. Yeah. Over 10,000 insurance agencies and sales producers have went through Weaver Sales Academy. And I want you to think of it as an online school for your sales producers to where we have a 100-day learning plan for a new hire that on average they're producing 51 items a month by day 90.
Wow.
We have a 90-day tenured training curriculum that by day 90 on average, tenured reps have increased their production by 40%. And so everything from that new business P&C sales conversation to pivots, to how to structure your day, to life insurance, to prospecting, to anything like appointments. Literally, if you're responsible for it from a sales professional standpoint, that's the tool we provide you as an agency owner to where, hey, here you go, follow the success plan, tell me what you learned today, and that's it. I would also say that the consistent training. So we do role play calls every Tuesday as a community. So the consistency that automatically allows you to give you a tool that it's there every single week for your team. So not only is it the online college, the on-demand system, but it's the every Tuesday training, which is great from a learning, but more so the community. You get to develop relationships of people that are like-minded, that are focused on development, focused on growth, that are sharing their struggles and how they're working through those. And then lastly, the level of accountability that we have. So any agency owner that signs up, we have a dedicated account manager that is assigned to them to ensure their success. So you could look at it as a designated success manager that checks in on their team every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what the agency owner wants, gives them report cards on the team's usage, is able to answer questions. And also they have access to me via text message. So I talk to 300 to 500 agents and producers a month on average, answering sales-related questions. So with that combination, I believe that's why we are the best for insurance agency owners, because we are very unique in what we do. And the success, we have the success to prove it. So
I think you laid out some amazing statistics, 51 items by day 90, 40% increase in production, man. I think for people listening out there, even if you just said those two things, it would probably be enough to pique their interest. And I think you said a lot more than that. And I think I'll give you the reason why I think people should consider Weaver Sales Academy is that, I think you said it. There's a lot of training. There's a lot of training programs out there. And I always tell people, like, there's a lot of different types of personalities. And I think different training programs might work best for different people. And people have always asked me, they're like, hey, like, do you do some? And I say on and off, right? Like we do them on and off. And, like the way that I look at a training program, like Weaver Sales Academy, is going to be different than my sales manager looks at it or my producer looks at it, right? Like I look at it when I remember when you gave me access to your platform, I went in and was just like impressed by the platform. And, cause like I love building things and I love technology. And like, for me, it wasn't even about the training. It was just more about like your function and like your, like how regimented it was and all the things. And so I love that. But I think really what I always tell people is, working with you, even informally, just like we've known each other now for a year and a half, and like the amount of interactions we said at the beginning of the call is like, one, you've got within Weaver Sales Academy, you have that 10-day like plan to get people from hiring to producing. That completely changed my mindset on how fast we could get somebody going. Okay. And so I remember like Ryan Hill, our sales trainer, you worked with him a little bit, and like we went back and he came back and I said, Ryan, man, 10 days. Michael Weaver and his team do it, we can do it, right? And so like to me, just the knowing it's like the 4-minute mile, right? Just being like knowing somebody's doing it changed the game for me, much less the actual content of 1 to 10 days was awesome, right? The other thing was you graciously spent a lot of time with me and my team on life insurance, which has never been the strong point for me or my agency, right? Like I've put up, really great property and casualty numbers, right, over the years. Have I built a life insurance operation that was able to put a lot of production out? I have, but not in a profitable way. When we got big numbers, it costs us too much money to do it sustainably. And so, even if you only had the increase in production, even if you only had the 10 days, even if you only had like, I think you just got done with your January promotion or just started your January promotion, it's like there's so much value there for what you pay. Like, and I think that all is even secondary to you as a partner with me at Peachy Insurance or Next Call Club, and both. Like, I can't say enough good things about you and your team. You have that long-term approach that I kind of talked about earlier. You take a long-term approach to relationships and partners, and you really are invested in people's success. The amount of people you've introduced me to just unprompted has been so great. You've been a great partner, man, and I appreciate you. And I appreciate you coming on today to add so much value to the audience here. And everyone's looking to grow their sales team. Everybody's looking to get more production, more efficiency at the same time. So with that, any kind of last words, like how do people find you? Anything that you want people to like walk away with before we kind of wrap it up?
Yeah. So first and foremost, Andrew, thank you so much. Like
of course,
mutual brother. I appreciate you. You talked about the 10-day new hire training program, which I didn't even talk about, but that's a major pain point for most agency owners to get somebody up and selling in that P&C sales conversation, which we knock out of the park. But when it comes, look, we've dedicated our lives to the insurance industry, to giving back to insurance professionals. And so you can obviously follow me on social. My favorite platform is LinkedIn, but you can find me on anything, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And then we have a podcast called The Insurance Buzz, which you've been on there a couple times now. And we get tremendous feedback on that. We have a lot of agency owners that are like, Michael, we train our team just off of Insurance Buzz podcast. So if you're listening right now, if you've never heard of The Insurance Buzz, make sure you check that out. And other than that, if you'd be interested, if you are looking for a partner, maybe you currently work with a training organization and you're just looking for something different, or you currently don't work with anybody and you're looking for a partner that can help you and your team take it to the next level by taking that training off your plate, offering you something consistent, teaching your team how to be true sales professionals and just not how to be good at the team member role, I'd love to just have a conversation with you. And so I know in the newsletter, there's going to be a link to be able to book a call. I'd love to have a conversation with you if it makes sense to talk about partnering in 2025.
Well said, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I think we dropped a tremendous amount of value and we'll do it again. And thanks so much, man. I think looking forward to seeing you on the circuit at all the events that we go to, and looking forward to continuing to collaborate this year, dude.
Yeah, brother. Thank you again.
Thank you.